Good morning, everybody. It is January 21st, 2024, and it's cold where I live here in southwestern part of Virginia. Usually we do like a rainy Monday TV, show here on the channel because when I was a kid, it was Sundays, and when it rained, you got a pack of comic books, you piled on the bed, you listen to the rain on the roof while you were sitting there in that four-color glory and stuff. But this weekend is different. We have a big snowstorm hit the last couple of days. It is 9:53 Eastern Standard Time. In 7 minutes, the winter storm warning is supposed to be over, but it is. When I got up this morning, it was 4 degrees, but now you're here for a weather report. How funny. But anyway, it is currently 9 degrees outside, and 30 minutes ago, it was a -4 wind chill factor. I was out in it for a second and turned around and was like, we're going to do a show this morning because I ain't doing crap around here. Good morning, John Jones. So first of all, like the video, the live stream video. If you're in the future, make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell. And it's cold in the house. We have the beautiful propane fireplace going, gas fireplace going. And in here, I have a little economical, environmental, cheap, whatever, heater going. So you might hear a little hum, and that's how it's going to be, because this room is half underground, and you can actually feel the Arctic air coming through. It's what it feels like coming through the outside wall there and stuff. So it's warming up in here, and I'm leaving the heat on. So grab a cup of coffee, hot chocolate, whatever you do, sit down, grab some comic books, and yeah, there we go. So right off the bat, we have John Jones going on. How much snow did we get? I don't know what the official inches are and stuff, but from me driving my shovel in my driveway twice, and I need to do it again. My wife actually got stuck at work for 3 days, and they put her up in hotels, so it's worse where she's at. You gotta remember, I'm in a little bit in the mountains and stuff. I'm going to go with 6 to 8 inches easily over the last couple days. And then 12 inches in Connecticut. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, yeah. What kills me is where I live. In my travels, where I traveled quite a bit for 15 years. And if you've been following the channel, you saw me move about 4 times and stuff. It kills me because growing up where I'm at in Virginia, it's winter. Big deal. It comes. You deal with it. Summer comes. The season comes. Not a big deal. Then when you move around and you get experience, not just reading about it, actually experience it. If I moved an hour and a half down the road, we wouldn't be having this crap. Knowing that if I moved an hour and a half down the road, I wouldn't have to deal with as much of it. That's a better way to put it. Oh, wow. Not sure windshield. Yeah. I felt the wind chill when I went outside. It actually cracked my lip. It's so cold. 12 degrees, not inches. Gotcha, Fryer Truck. Gotcha. 12 degrees. Okay. That could have been me. Who knows, right? So I want to enjoy my coffee here and do the warm. And I was snowed in for a few days there, of course. And like I said, my wife ended up getting snowed in the first time when this started at her mother's house. She couldn't make it to where we live. And then this weekend, towards the end of the week, working it up, getting her a nice hotel that is near a Chili's and a Cracker Barrel and stuff. So she's been eating really great. And I ended up our office is closed, and I did a combination of closing for the day, which never happens, and opening at 10 and 12 o'clock. So I actually had 2 days of work. And one of those days I had to travel around and do my job. And luckily I was able to stop in at one place during a lunch break and ended up hitting a dollar box. So what we have today, now that we're finally getting to everything, is that we have a combination of some dollar box finds, a late Christmas gift, a antique store 3 books that I didn't show in the hall when I went because I left them upstairs, 2 eBay packages, I believe. And then I have a stack of what I'm reading. And as a joke, I should have said this at the beginning because I just remembered the title. I might change the title to this video, guys, right? But I'm catching up reading things, and I'm going through my Quasar. Yes, Quasar, guys, Quasar. Okay, I'm through the first 20 issues of Quasar. And there's an issue that apparently I either read and it didn't stick out, or I skimmed through it. But there's Mark Grunwald in issue 19 of Quasar has given us a way to save the Marvel Universe comics, yes, with the crap that's going on. So when we get there, we'll talk about it, right? And it's a joke, guys, because there's no saving it. Come on. But anyway, we got all kinds of people coming in. What we got here, it has it's soared to 4 above at the moment. You wouldn't think Virginia and 6+ inches of snow. I don't know, 6, is that a lot? No, that's not a lot. That's not. Is that a lot, guys? I mean, average is. Would that be average if there's any ladies out there? Anyway, happy snow day, JP Fawn. Happy snow day, Howler Mouse. I heard your name dropped on Who's Reviews regarding your choice of the favorite Tom Baker season. Oh man, okay, I need to go check them out. Gore Vidal. If I'm thinking right, Gore Vidal emailed me a link to them, so I'm sort of making my way through their stuff. Wow, I'm gonna have to go check that out. Who's Reviews? I hope I can find that video. Great channel, Who's Reviews. It's classic Doctor Who. I think what I'm through. Yesterday was Tom Baker, my favorite Doctor Who, the one that introduced me to Doctor Who, thanks to PBS in the States back in the early 80s. It's my favorite Doctor Who. Dave Tennant came close. Matt Smith is great. They've all been great up until Peter Capaldi was the last good Doctor, in my opinion. Not that we're here for that. Easy Comic Reader, great to see you guys. I'll be back to Eric Breen. I'm being backed up on Quasar, fun series, and Greg Capullo's first regular art gig, if I remember correctly. It's good stuff, man. It is good stuff. It's satisfying reading comic book stuff. Thank you, Breen, man. Maybe we can get together and talk a little bit about it and some other stuff. You know, it doesn't have to be Quasar centric, you know. Morning, minus 19 degrees up north in the border at the moment. Comic Crack, and we now have our, and I apologize if there's other people that I don't realize, but we have our resident Canadian here. Proud Canadian. All right. Okay. Stay warm, guys. Stay warm. So to start out here, I'm just going to go with what's beside me. We're just going to be laid back, get a little coffee. And if you like just a tinge of a fruity taste and a real sweet coffee, I have found this white chocolate raspberry coffee creamer that somebody at work had in the refrigerator. And yes, I decided to steal a little bit because I don't function till 9:30 in the morning, which is why we usually do this at this time. And I didn't mind a bit. And when I was like, that's delightful. So apparently it's really popular or scarce because my wife found some at a dollar store, not at a grocery store, after I've been looking for a month. So super enjoying the coffee. So some of my Christmas presents came late. I only got 2 or 3, which is fine because, you know, the wife and I, the way things are, you see the hobby. You know what I mean? You see the hobby. And she has her thing, I have my thing. If we're out together and we see something one of them wants, we just go ahead and get it. And then we're talking like a manga here and there. You know what I mean? For her, for me, it's, you've seen it. I show it all to you. Little comic books here, $10 there, $12 there over the month. Accumulation of new comics over 3 or 4 months before I show them, things like that. We don't really get a lot of other things. I have my hobbies and things like that outside of things. But this ended up coming late, and I'm not going to say a word. You know, you shop online, especially during the Christmas season where everybody is buying things and stuff. It's going to come in late. Not a big deal, right? And I should have grabbed it right over here behind me, over there. I showed this on the Fossil Show on Graphic Man's channel and stuff, right? But probably around 2000, 2001, I went to Heroes Con in Charlotte, North Carolina. And there's people that commented on there saying that, you know, they knew what I was talking about, but I was, you know, going back and, you know, electronics and stuff, right? But you had like DVD coming out, high def. I don't know where Blu-ray was in all this. I know it was coming around and all this stuff, but there was a war with what was going on. It was VHS versus beta all over again. You didn't know which way to go, what was going to come out, and the DVD ended up winning, right? So I go to Heroes Con, and thanks to this new technology, it's amazing how adult entertainment and pirating is always the ones that push technology to what it can be. You know, I ended up buying a bootleg version of the complete Thundarr the Barbarian series, and I was happy with that. It had the Cartoon Network logo. right there, watermarked on it and stuff like that on some of the episodes and stuff. And it took me back. I have no idea if they were in order, but Thunder the Barbarian is right up there with probably one of my top 5 cartoon series ever and stuff, right? So for Christmas, I ended up getting the proper Thunder the Barbarian DVD set and stuff, right? And so since I've been snowed in and I've been reading it a little bit and doing this and doing that, I made it through about 3 episodes in the background and stuff last night. I remember them well because I watched this. This was on the air 1980. I want to say up until about 83 or 84. I could be wrong. And of course, it really went into reruns. And it's surprised in between that Cartoon Network in the 90s, that bootleg DVD. I remember them pretty good. And one of my favorite things is that this is the series I've talked about. Jack Kirby art scared the crap out of me. Go look at the cover of Mac #1. There's a loser's splash page. The stepdad and the uncle. Jack Kirby and Dr. Doom and Kiss were the big things that the stepdad was into, right? So Kirby art was everywhere from the DC stuff, right? Forever People with the Dead Man issues and things like that, right? Anyway, so Jack Kirby really freaked me out. And if one of his comics was out when I was trying to go to bed, I would have to flip it over because those big blocky styles and the colors and everything that freaked me out. So this is the cartoon. Oh, please let's not do this. Okay. So this is the cartoon that I'm looking for the episode after I've sat here and bragged about knowing them so well. But there's an episode where there's a village of dwarves, if you will, and they had the headband on and they had their clothes on and they had the Jack Kirby squiggles and things on that. And that's how I knew it was Jack Kirby. So as a 7-year-old little kid, I sat there and I would watch the on a crappy TV, but I loved it at the time. Remember, it's 1980. But I'm watching this crappy little TV and I'm trying to read the credits and I'm trying to find Jack Kirby's name, and I found it. Not only did Jack Kirby and Steve Gerber create this, Alex Toth worked on this. Buzz Dixon, Chuck, I think it's Chuck Dixon. He comes up as Buzz Dixon. I'm assuming it's him. Steve Gerber, Alex Toth, Jack Kirby, Steve Gerber, Alex Toth. Oh my God, I just watched some of this, Mark Evanier. But there's probably about a handful of 5 or 6 major comic book people that actually worked on this cartoon. And there are shades of everything in it. I see shades of Kamandi in it and things like that. Of course, it's a post-apocalyptic world because 2,000 years ago in the year 1997, a comet came between, whatever it was, an asteroid came between the Earth and the moon. And 2,000 years later, Thundar rose above and all this stuff, right? And they're running around. And there is no doubt in my mind that he and Ariel were getting it on. Okay, you just got to watch it to see, man. Right. So what I would love to see with Thundar is if you go back, and I can't believe how long ago it was, but if you go back, I think it was in the 2000s, and it has Alex Ross covers, but they did oh God, who was the author? Man, I'm just not on it this morning. But anyway, there's a Space Ghost miniseries of the telling of the origin, and it's a space western. There's a lot of there's a lot of things where I see Lone Ranger kind of stuff in it and stuff like that. But it's a great origin because it's actually a western in space where they did this adult tone with Space Ghost telling his origin. And I would love to do that with Thundar. I actually got the story in my head just from some of the opening credits and stuff. The thing actually opened, if you did an adult themed origin of this series, I think it would be, fantastic. Right. All right. So like I said, just going down the line here. So I have all these. I bought these when they came out, man. If Grant Morrison was on a series, I was there. Right. And I'm not saying not to get this run. I'm actually recommending the run. It really kind of rejuvenated what they were doing with the X-Men. And I actually think this is some of the best stuff. If you go through the timeline, you had what Chris Claremont was doing, right? Build up 17 years of, continuity and characterization, the things that didn't go anywhere, threads unresolved, things that did pay off, ongoing jokes and things like that. He built a dynasty. We know he did, right? Then he left and they kind of gutted the X-Men the next 3 or 4 years. I mean, everything he built up, they kind of ran through pretty quick. Age of Apocalypse came out, and if you know that storyline, I ended up getting it retroactive. I kind of warmed up to it later. And then I don't feel like there was a lot going on with the X-Men. They did a lot of dumb stuff. I mean, they did Magneto pulling the metal out of Wolverine. He lost his nose and went feral. I mean, yeah. So then all of a sudden Grant Morrison comes onto the X-Men, and I thought it was fantastic. I think I really liked what he did. So I have all the issues, right? Read it as it came out, have a few multiples here and there. Then I go to this antique shop. They didn't have volume 1, but this is 2, 3, and 4 of the trades. Now that I can pull them out, I'm really getting into finding these trades for cheap of things I actually read and want to reread. When I read current comics now, I talked about this, my mind ends up wandering, and out of the blue, I'll be like, I want to go back and read this. I want to go back and read that. So basically, we have the Grant Morrison X-Men stuff. I think this one has the notorious sex issue. There's Ethan Van Sciver drawn X-Men where on every page he hid the word sex in the art and stuff, right? So, yeah, to find these for $3 a piece, that's cool. You know what I mean? Frank Quitely, Ethan Van Sciver, Grant Morrison. I think it's a really cool, and it did pay off. He actually took it somewhere. And we had, I'll go ahead and tell you, we had Magneto get killed again. And his whole thing was, I'm going to kill Magneto in a way they can never bring him back, which they did. And he ended up killing Jean Grey again. And he ended up turning the Beast evil again. That seems to be a thing. Ever since they brought up the Gray Beast in Age of Apocalypse 30 years ago, they really want to keep making him a bad guy, from what I understand. But in this one, we went Beauty and the Beast. This is the series where all the mutants, or most of the mutants, or whatever, got secondary mutations all of a sudden. For example, a telepath like Emma Frost, the White Queen, she turned around and ended up having a secondary mutation of being able to turn into diamond hard skin and all that. Meanwhile, she's having a psychic plane mental affair only in their heads with Cyclops, and Jean Grey walks in on them. Is it really cheating? Is it? Yeah, it is. There's no existential crisis there. All right. So, good morning. Wow. I'm assuming everybody is snowed in or something, man. There's a ton of people here this morning. Okay, we're going to go quick on these because I really want to do this. John Jones. Hey, my problem with Jodie is as the director wasn't. Wait a minute. My problem with Jodie. Oh, we're talking Doctor Who. Jodie Whittaker was her writers, which made her a companion to start with. And I get what you're saying, but oh man, I'm not going to get into this, man. We're going to stick to the comics and stuff. But I tried to watch some of that Jodie Whittaker stuff. If you could sit through it, more power to you, man. You know, I'm not going to do a Jodie Whittaker hate thing, but wow, you know, it was wow. Peter Capaldi is pretty bitter about his time with Doctor Who because of behind the scenes crap, the woke agenda. Yeah, I know exactly the episode I about dropped out of, and that was when we had it wasn't what Doctor Who was supposed to be about. Doctor Who's roots are as a kids TV show. That's exactly its roots. Everything starts from there. It doesn't matter how sophisticated they get and everything like that. But when they did the Moon episode, I don't want to get clocked by YouTube here. I had somebody reported me, and I got jerked off on one of my live streams. I found out where I had to pick up my phone and start over. YouTube sent me a thing, give me a warning, and I don't know what the deal was. Usually, if that happens, you can't stream for 3 months. Which is how it used to be, but I was able to pick right back up, but I still got that warning. But yeah, they went, I could see the seeds coming in. Good morning, John C. JP Fawn, Kirby's early Dark Side was way creepy. Oh yeah. Yeah, we're talking about the Jack Kirby art. Yes, that's an iconic, there's an iconic image also, man. Thundar as a child would inspire me, Fire Tuck here. Inspired me to go out in the backyard, stay in power, recreate post-apocalyptic Earth with my brothers and old plastic dinosaurs and toy soldiers. That brings a freaking tear to my eye. I'm not even joking. That's exactly how we used to play back in the day with everything. Lords of Light. We have a fan there. Ukla the Muck. Matilda Gothica. Good morning. Everybody check out Matilda Gothica's show Sequential Thoughts. Is that it? Yes. And she's on Instagram. I'm on Instagram. Imagine a spin-off Thundar called Son of Thundar. Oh, that's awesome. That is on. I've been fine. I hope you're doing well. For our Tuck, check out Galaxy Rangers cartoon. Good stuff. I think I know that. I think I do know that. And Mr. Gore Vidal is here. Grant Morrison is afraid to explore human psychology and take it to the limit in mainstream comics, from Arkham Asylum, Doom Patrol, Invisibles, and X-Men. Too bad he never wrote Harley Quinn. Oh wow, Arkham Asylum, the sequel, starring Harley Quinn. That would be fantastic. Good morning to you, Gore. Good to see you, sir. Subjective Thoughts. Yes, there we go. Check it out, guys. And then we have, and she is doing well. Awesome, awesome. Okay, guys. So just a little bit of the dollar haul here. Some books here. Now, one of these is going to shock you. It shocked myself. I felt like a Judas. If you have me on Instagram, you've already seen it. So we'll just go ahead and share that one there, right? But yes, I did get an issue of Booster Gold. Why did I get an issue of Booster Gold? Because I actually saw this back in the day when it came out on the spinner rack at Magic Mart. I can tell you the weather outside. I can tell you what was going on. I got off the bus, ran in. I think school had just started anyway, and I saw the Legion. And you know, I'm a Legion nut, and he's fighting the Legion of Superheroes and stuff, right? And one of the things that many things of my hate with Booster is that it always seems like going all the way back to the start, Booster Gold will get injected in some way into all of my favorite things. And one of the things started out with the Legion, because Booster Gold, people seem to forget, is that he was running around with a Legion flight ring. And I'm like, if they make this little son of a bitch a member of the Justice League, my 12-year-old, 13-year-old butt is going to revolt somehow. I don't know. I might spit. So years later, hey, here's a cover where Booster Gold is getting beat up by Ultra Boy. That's, hopefully it's going to go down, so yeah, I got that because of the Legion and because it was there in the dollar box, right? And then there's books I buy over and over. I'm a Watchmen nut. I've not only do I have the Watchmen series, I now have two complete versions of the series. One is more of a mint condition collection. The other one's got a mix of breeder copies and damaged and good books and stuff. What if I want to look at the original issues I've got there? And a lot of them are still in good shape. And then I have tons of extras. I've got a video I did, I don't know, a year or two ago where I just went ahead and had all my Watchmen stuff and showed it all, and I've gotten more since then, right? But one of the things I will pick up is that if you remember Who's Who in the DC universe back in the 80s, I absolutely loved that series. I love that series, right? And I'm going to show you one of them. And then when it ended after the original 26 issues, they came up with updates, 1987 updates, 88 updates. And one of the things they had was the Who's Who update 1987 volume 4, and you also need number 5. It's a Todd McFarlane cover. And cool enough is, we got Todd McFarlane doing a question all these years later. Now I am interested in seeing Todd McFarlane. 37 years later, go figure. 37 years later, now I would like to see a Todd McFarlane question series. I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know who would write it nowadays. But in this, it's because they have, if you look at the table of contents, is one of the things I thought was very cool. They had the Minutemen in here from Watchmen, right? They have their own little section drawn by Dave Gibbons. The next issue after this has the Watchmen. I have multiples of these, of this one. I don't have multiples of the other one. I can't believe that. Volume number 5. But yeah, I'll grab these all the time because they're Watchmen, because they're always cheap. I have a second set of Who's Who of the original series as well. I mean, I grabbed these Who's Who's because when the first one was coming out, I bought that month to month. I mean, that book started when I was 12 and ended when I was was that right? No, I was younger than that, 11. That series started when I was 11, and then it ended by the time I was like 14 or 15 or something like that. That's a huge amount of time psychologically, for a kid. When you think back on it, man, it felt like time went so slow back then, right? Another thing I get is that I sold this on eBay. And what was so funny is when I sold this whole series on eBay the first time around, I kept the keys, don't get me wrong. I was just making room. I had a huge run of Captain America I sold to my brother. A huge run of Thor I sold to my brother, right? This was in the 90s and stuff, right? And then I got an eBay, playing around with eBay in the beginning, and I went ahead and sold this, and we were making room. You know what I mean? All this stuff. And I've gone back and recollected most of this and picked up a lot of things and stuff, right? So just to collect, when you find it in dollar bins, X Factor number 18. Now, I have a lot of nostalgia for this stuff, right? When this came out, I had placed in order. I went ahead and subscribed. I used Marvel subscription service for the first time, and I ordered 2 books, right? I was going to follow 2 books. They I think they had some kind of deal. You order 2 books, it was a little bit cheaper or whatever, so I was going to try it, right? So this is an 87, 86, 87, maybe. I can go back and look at the books, but the 2 books that I ordered to start subscribing to, I checked off. I did not get either one of those. I ended up getting X Factor and Silver Surfer. which was fine because I was already getting those off the rack, but I did not get the two other series that I had actually clicked on. I don't remember what they were, right? And when these came out, that's one of the reasons I kind of got rid of them, is they did come out in the I don't know if you guys remember or if they still have them. They still have them where we're at and stuff. We get them every now and then, but they had the paper grocery bags. Well, the envelope it slid around. They just wrapped it around, and it had no ends. These comics would slide in and out, and they would actually fold the comic books up and slam them into your mailbox and stuff. And if you had a post office box, it was even worse, right? So yeah, I ended up getting 13, 14 issues of X Factor like that. So yeah, but this book I recommend starting around issue, what was it, 6, I believe. This book started out, it was Jackson Guice, Butch Guice, who I wish continued the art. I think Bob Layton was writing it, and it just wasn't going well, right? They were really trying to be something, and they didn't work. Let's just put it that way, right? Then Louise Simonson and Walt Simonson came on and just breathed new life into the book, and it took a little while. I mean, if you sit down and binge reading, it didn't take long at all, but getting it month to month in the mail, yeah, it took a little while, and they just brought it to life. And the teens, okay, after the Mutant Massacre, there's about a year of this book that is really good. There's a lot of stuff in there, man. We get Master Mold, we get Jean Grey and Scott going at it again, a little hint to the Phoenix and stuff like that. A little bit of underrated material there if you're an 80s X-Men fan, right? And then something that's ended up being very cool. And again, I'm not going to recommend you go out and get this. There's some cool design work. You either like Keith Giffen or you don't, right? But I was getting Justice League International, Justice League Europe, Justice League America, Justice League Quarterly, annuals, whatnot, and stuff. I was there. I was getting that stuff month to month. It was fantastic. It came out of Legends, all right? But thanks to that damn direct market book, there were things going on out there that you would see articles for or editorials. You got to, I've told you guys before, when I read the comics, I read everything. I read the story, right? And then you would get little editor's notes. Now we'll read the letters page, the editorials, the checklists and stuff, all of it, right? I mean, the love of comics I have and had and still have when I can find them is there. That it was everything, right? I mean, every bit of it, even the advertisements and the catalogs and the ordering, it was a world of its own in here, right? But anyway, thanks to the direct market, I would hear about this miniseries of Dr. Fate, right? And Keith Giffen is working on it. DeMantis was working on it. This was the Justice League crew, right? And there's a 4-issue miniseries that came out. Now I have 3 of them. I need 1 more. Giffen's art is out there on this one, right? Okay, it's out there. I read 1 issue and the story is out there. It's not the same tone as the Justice League and stuff. It's almost like they're trying to do some kind of bit of horror there, maybe a little Lovecraftian there, but they play with the gods of chaos and order and stuff like that. But whenever I'm not going out of my way to get this miniseries, but I'll get it as I come along. There's 4 issues. I need 1 more. But Giffen doing little simple covers like this is fantastic. I think it's fantastic, right? And then this led to an ongoing ongoing series that James DeMantis did, where he was actually playing around with some stuff, and I've got most of those. Pulled in the New Gods and some Fourth World stuff in there with Dr. Fate and the Lords of Order and Chaos, and a cast of many, and killing Kent Nelson, and had him walking around looking like Hellblazer, which was just a zeitgeist thing. The whole thing, right? A lot of stuff happened, right? So it's fun to find these little things that I kind of wanted when they were coming out. Again, I'm at that point in my career, in my collecting, where I will tell you when I'm actually recommending something. A lot of this stuff is just showing what I have. What we got here? Hey, it's a 7th sign. Tim brought out a Booster Gold book. Yes, I should have put that right in the title. Did you wear sunglasses, overcoat, and a hat to disguise your identity when you brought it? No, I just went to a town where nobody knew me. He's sending the wife to get it. I love it. That's hilarious. Well played. Grant Morrison and Dave McKean's Arkham Asylum, where it channels Grant Morrison and Dave McKean's Arkham Asylum 2, where Grant Morrison channels Jean-Paul Sartre's No Exit Play, where Joker, Bruce, and Harley are locked in a windowless room. It was other people. How did we get here? Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be fantastic, right? Okay, so maybe we might have some better stuff going on here with those dollar box finds. I probably already showed this off, right? But Marvel Knights in the 90s, people kind of forget that the bubble was busting. And it was one of the many times where comic books were going to go out of business and stuff, man. But, Marvel really went downhill. There's things people don't remember, right? There's things that if I bring them up, you're going to like groan. And there's people who are right on the edge of like, don't say it and things like that, right? But people seem to forget that there was this whole big, gigantic Avengers revamp where Mike Deodato Jr. and his whole studio or whatever he had came in, and they did these horrible redesigns on all of the Avengers and on Thor, and it did not last long, right? People kind of forget that, right? Meanwhile, what's going on is that in the indie market, like I said, in the 80s, it was alternative. And then with the Image and stuff, I started hearing more indie, things like that, calling it indie and stuff, right? You had guys like Joe Quesada, who was, he had his little stable there, right? Joe Quesada in his stable, Jimmy Palminici. Anyway, they were playing around. You would see Joe Quesada working on Batman, right? And then you would see him doing the Ray, right, in DC. And then all of a sudden he's popping up doing covers over here at Valiant. He ended up popping up doing covers for other indie books and stuff, right? He was all over the place. And then all of a sudden, he came out with Ash, his own book, right? A fireman or something with superpowers, whatever, Painkiller Jane or something, right? Had pretty good success actually. And then to me, in my mind, everywhere he went, I feel like he was taking notes on how Valiant at the time was doing stuff and how this guy was doing stuff. And I don't know, it's just how it came off to me, because all of a sudden he got handed a chance to have his own line of comics called Marvel Knights at Marvel. And those books took off. He brought in Kevin Smith. He did his story on the Daredevil books. I ended up selling them because, oh my God, I could make it through a Roy Thomas comic with no problem with all the words he's got going on. I can make it through Mark Grunwald with no problem with him wanting to explain every little thing and putting it in continuity. Roy does that too. But the stuff that Kevin Smith did in that Marvel Knights, I don't even care to remember what it was and stuff. Oh my God. He even had he had characters talking so much that even there's even a panel where somebody looks at Matt or somebody and was like, yeah, nice speech. Like everybody's getting lectured in the book. Whatever. If you like it, that's fine, right? But anyway, Joe Quesada, those books were so big, even with some of the missteps, at least they were experimenting. I mean, they had Bernie Wrightson come in and do Punisher, but they had him being like this. They went occult and mystical and had him as a servant of angels and heaven and stuff, right? People forget that when Grant Morrison took over that Punisher book, he had 2 pages that he was kind of like, gave us the end to that story of why Frank ended up back on Earth and stuff, right? They had the Black Panther series that was good. They had a lot of stuff going on that was good. And he got a second go around, and that's what led him into being editor-in-chief for years and stuff, and bringing in a bunch of indie guys on the books, right? Good or bad. He saved Marvel. They were following chapter 11 and stuff, right? But anyway, one of the things that came out of this was the Inhumans, right? And I got the first 2 issues, and then it wasn't on the rack anymore where I was getting them at, right? I'm a big fan of Jay Lee's art around this time. I was collecting Namor thanks to John Byrne. John Byrne kept writing, brought in Jay Lee as an artist, a lot of Simon Bosley like work going on. So it was really cool to see Jay Lee becoming an artist, in my mind, like showing us what he can do. And he's changed his style again. But I think I showed this before. This is number 12, and there's probably another one in here. But yeah, over the past couple months, without even trying, I've been running across the series to go ahead and collect. And yes, I know number 5 is worth like money or whatever. It's in a dollar box somewhere. Now, this next one is an eBay find. If you're hanging in there, and by now, if you've watched, the game, right? The game is basically Immortal Hulk. I'm going to get the entire series for $1 a piece, right? And it's for fun. So, there's room to kind of expand. It's not a rigid, militaristic thing. It has to just be this, right? Sometimes it balances out a little bit, right? I've talked about how I found a whole bunch of them and bought like 25 books for $20 at a flea market lot, and got a bunch of the Immortal Hulks in that, lot like that. So those aren't $1. And then like I've already had like director's cuts of issue 1 and 2, but I went ahead and paid like it was either $6 or $8 for like an actual number 1. No big deal, right? Still got those 1 and 2 director cuts for $1 a piece, right? So this one I found for $1, but with the shipping, guys, it made it $4.80, right? So the book was actually $1, but the shipping pumped it up there, right? And it was such an odd number. Like I almost wanted the message the seller be like, "Why 380? How did you come up with that?" I don't know, right? And I didn't even check. I think I still had the actual mailer that it came in. Get that down real quick. I just saw what was on the back of it. Anyway, I didn't check the mailer to see if he actually used all that. But anyway, we now have Immortal Hulk #2, a variant cover. I cannot remember the artist, right? But it's a variant edition of #2. I actually like this better than the Alex Ross cover, which is strange because I love Alex Ross's work. Get the glare off that. But I think it's where it's all the blacks. I think I like when it comes to comic book art, I'm like, go Wally Wood, go Tom Palmer, man. Use those blacks. Throw them in there, man. You know what I mean? So Bernie Wrightson, I love it's a black and white medium with 4 colors at the end of the day. I don't care how fancy you get with your computers, guys. You and your damn fangled supernatural weird technology. But anyway, what was so weird is when I looked this up to see what the value was. My comic shop, not my comic shop, comicbookrealm.com, it usually has their act together, had this down as a 5th printing, and it's not. It's a variant edition G, right? So I'm thinking it's a $15 to $20 book. I don't really worry too much about that, but I do kind of like finding those deals. I'm all about the deal. Okay, $15 book for $1. Cool deal. I'll get it. Stuff. Great shape. Black cover. No, and whoever it was took care of this. There's nothing. This is fantastic. There's no color breaks. There's no creases. No nothing. Right. So now I need 8 issues of a 50-issue run. There's 51 or 52. There's a few extra things there, right? That Al Elwing or whatever his name was, the guy who wrote it, put out there and stuff, right? So yes, I have managed to get 42 issues of Immortal Hulk for an average of $1 a piece, right? I'm not even going to count the shipping and stuff, right? That's the fun of this stuff. That is the fun. Just kind of putting down the universe, see what happens. It's kind of like having a subplot in a comic book when they used to do that. You know what I mean? The subplots that would pay off later, have another story ready to go as the superhero story is going. And then I found this super cheap, right? I don't even remember what I paid for it, but I know it was like in the $2 range. You know what I mean? And I don't know what happened. I got the trades. I have the trades over there. A couple of weeks ago, I found 2 trades that I think are the first 12 issues or something of this fantastic series. Now, what I like about getting this series isn't so much what's going on inside, but how people get so excited when I show these books. There are people out there that absolutely love this book. And if I put it on Instagram, it's great comments and things like that. But I'm sitting here like, as we get older and a lot of things are happening and things, get that first issue and stuff, right? So American Flag #1, first appearance of our Reuben Flag. And the greatest comment that I got on Instagram about this was someone was like, can you just not do, how they put it? I don't know exactly how to quote them on this, but they were saying, can't you just imagine William Shatner coming in and playing this in a TV show of American Flag? I didn't even know I needed that. I think he said something, would I give up a left testicle for it or something? I don't know. I don't know about the left one. But anyway, American Flag, #1. No matter what it feels, I don't usually get into political comics and stuff too bad, but I totally get what Howard Chaykin is. This is very sophisticated in a way that you don't even realize how sophisticated it is. Somebody else trying to make something this sophisticated, it would come off contrived. And for it to be, and Reuben Flag is exactly what this book needs. For some of the heavy stuff that's in here, Reuben Flag as a light adult film star character is exactly what this book needs and stuff, without him becoming adorkable. You follow what I'm saying? He's not an idiot, kind of. And again, I might change my mind. I haven't read this very much. All right. So, I'm a novice when it comes to American Flag, but to me, there's an author named Harry Harrison, I think is his name, and he did the Stainless Steel Rat. And for some reason, Reuben feels like he walked out of that book. That's all I'm going to say until I read more. Okay, guys. So let's see what we got here. Don't trigger me. What? Oh, what we got here? I got an omnibus of Booster Gold. I still need to read. Oh, Matilda. Oh, you're just pushing my buttons. I could see it. I see what you're doing there. Yes. Oh, wow. The fact that he got an omnibus. Oh, it's so funny. Here we go. FYI, Daredevil Born Again Gallery Edition is released at the end of the month. This is from, is that Libra? Libra Paradiso. I probably butchered that name. Thank you for the information there. I've got the original issues and stuff. And I tell you what, I read it when it came out. I reread it about 10 years ago. I know I read it somewhere in between, don't get me wrong. And that is one of the things with Born Again that I would really like to know what about that book connects with so many people that consider that a classic. Because I think year one was coming out, Batman Year One was coming out around the same time. And I really thought Batman Year One buried the book when it comes to Born Again. And I'm not being disrespectful or anything like that, because I also, at the time, as much as I would love to go back to The Dark Knight Returns and reread that book for the first time, I was 15 when I read that, and I read it, and I actually read Batman Year One before that. There's a whole story, right? But I actually go back and reread Batman Year One more than I do Dark Knight Returns and Born Again. Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli. Oh my God, just unreal, just an unreal team, man. Oh, I knew I recognized those boots. American flag forever. Nice. How Check-ins, time, Omni, we published. Oh, nice. There's an omnibus coming out. Okay. Gotcha. It's all right, Matilda. It's an ongoing joke on here. There's a 10-year-old video that took me 3 years to make, or agreed to make, of people wanting to know why I hated Booster Gold. So you can look up Howler Mouse why I hate Booster Gold, and I have no idea if I come off entertaining, pandy. I've never gone back and rewatched the video myself. Paulo, what's up, brother? Good to see you. So many great people showing up this morning, right? So before I get to this, right, there are things that I know don't excite people, but it's so great when I do run into those people that get it. And it's usually the people that were collecting at the time. There are John Ostrander fans. There are John Ostrander fans, Kim Gale fans. And what I really think hurts some of the books as they came out at the time was the art teams they gave them, right? Because there's an artist who, it is not personal. I will never say anything personal about the guy. I don't know it. Good for him. He apparently was able to make a living there for a while in comics and stuff. I didn't understand it. But there's a guy named Luke McDonnell. He's that guy. I look at his art and I can't stand it. It's blocky, choppy. It's not fluid. Maybe it's the angles thing. I don't know. I'm sure it's a preference, right? But you saw this book when it came out. Like I said, I was there. This stuff came out. I was excited about all this stuff, right? So Suicide Squad #1 came out. This is the actual one I bought off the rack, people, and I followed that book for the first 14 or 15 issues before it disappeared from the rack, and it always killed me because of the artist, right? This is how he drew faces. You know what I mean? All these great characters, a lot of great things going on in there. And that's what we get from his artwork, right? So years ago, I was at the flea market in Dublin, right? Virginia, for you guys that know, Pulaski, great flea market. That's a flea market that's great 2 times a year. The place is clean. It's packed. You pay $1 to get in. They got great food. And I ran across a guy who had a bin of comic books. It was actually in a plastic bin. You could see through it. I went through there and he had the entire run of Suicide Squad. 35 cents a piece, guys. I'm pretty sure I can go back and look at the video and stuff, right? If I go back way back and find it, right? And I was like, oh my God, he's going to have it. And it was the first appearance of Oracle, Suicide Squad #23. At the time, that's the only key book besides #1 I knew. This is before the movies and everything. Like I said, I'm positive this had to be a summer day 10 years ago or longer, probably longer. Anyway, So yeah, I was all happy to get that because, like I said, Suicide Squad disappeared from the rack back in the 80s and stuff, right? And I remember seeing these two issues, and I didn't pick them up, because I just didn't. I just was buying other things and stuff. I was filing Valiant Comics and stuff, and other stuff, right? So I had a chance to get this for 35 cents, number 48 of Suicide Squad, and I got on eBay and got the other one. Let me tell you the significance. This is going somewhere. This should be a separate video. I need to get back to making short videos. I might just do it with these set of books here and pull out a Booster Gold one, right? So then I got on there and I found this cheap. I did pay $10 for this, right? That's not a Brian Boland cover. That is a Kevin Nolan doing his best Brian Boland there, right? And I saw those for 35 cents a piece and didn't grab them. And then later I found out these were two key books because they called back to The Killing Joke and people went nuts. Believe it or not, I do believe this one is maybe an $80 book and this is maybe a $40 to $60 book. I haven't looked them up in a while, but it blows my mind that these are two key books because they call back to The Killing Joke. One of these has actual recreated pages by the artist in the book that are from The Killing Joke. Another book that I went ahead and got at a comic book convention a couple months ago, I went ahead and just pulled the trigger because I also had my hands on this book. I had my hands on the World's Finest, Superman Batman annual that had like the future Superman and the future Batman Beyond, and Superman from Batman Beyond as well, or whatever. And I didn't grab them. They were a buck a piece. The place was going out of business, and I bought so much stuff. I was like, Brave and Bold, I can get that later. Nobody was into the Superman Batman comic at the time. This was like 2010 or 11. Turns out this book took off, and this is one of the books that everybody wants because it's Wonder Woman, Zatanna, and Batgirl. I pulled the trigger on it, got this for like maybe $20 or something. I got to go back and look at the video again. Anyway, I got a deal, right? I didn't pay what the guy wanted. And he was very cool about it. So I get this and I gingerly open it up and I start reading it. And it turns out that Zatanna, showing a power she has never demonstrated to me, has a dream of the future of Batgirl. And their answer is that and she sees that Batgirl is going to get shot and possibly killed. Something horrible is going to happen to her, but she doesn't know where or when or how. So her answer is to call up Wonder Woman and say, let's take Barbara on a night of the town and give her one good night. And she uses her powers to make people ask her to dance when they go clubbing and stuff, because apparently Barbara Gordon, this hot redhead, just cannot get a date. She's just this mousy librarian and stuff. And I'm like, that's it? And of course, it ends up being the Joker, and they show the Joker shooting her, recreate the pages, and this is a huge book. I don't get it. It's sometimes there's mysteries out there. What I'm just not getting. That's a superhero story. This is what they do. We're going to take her clubbing. I'm not going to warn her not to open her door. I don't get it, right? So those two books, calling back, are worth quite a bit. I'm a completionist. I've had him on my hands on them, and that's why I wanted them, because I messed up. And those things, as many great deals as I find, every now and then something like that makes me regret. The only regret now left that I can think of comic book wise is when I had to sell my Amazing Spider-Man 300 around 2008, thanks to divorce and stuff, right? I had the first appearance of Moon Knight, Werewolf number 32. That was in my stepdad's collections. That thing was beat up. That thing got tossed around rooms from the 70s to the late 80s and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it was like the bad nickel of the collection. Who knew? You know what I mean? But the Amazing Spider-Man 300 I bought off the rack. That's the last great, regret. Maybe one day. I don't know. That and Teen Titans New Teen Titans number 2, the first appearance of Deathstroke. Those are the only siren calls I really have now that I've completed that Batman, that Killing Joke stuff, right? And I love Killing Joke. I've got a couple prints of it. I've got they're right up here. I could pull them down. I've got the hardback edition where Dave Gibbons recovered it. I love it. I'm sorry that Alan Moore doesn't like it. A lot of people were sort of like ooh on it and stuff, right? It was fun. It was great at the time. It was also supposed to be an Elseworld story. The reason they let Barbara Gordon, I'm getting off track. But anyway, what people don't realize, and I would love to go back, and maybe I have the interview here in an Amazing Heroes or Wizard or wherever I read it and stuff. But what people don't realize is that when Alan Moore came on to Swamp Thing, that around that time, what was that, 83, 84, they were planning Crisis on Infinite Earths already, right? And he did this Killing Joke story, and it was Brian Boland taking so long on the artwork. That's why the book came out around, what was it, 88? It came out years later. They were letting artists and writers do things to characters that they would normally not let them do because it didn't matter. The crisis was coming, everything was going to reboot and reset, which is why they did something horrible to Barbara Gordon in that story. Little did they know that it would take Brian Boland so long that Crisis Infinite Earths would come out, be dusted off, done with, put on the shelf, and then this comes out. And people couldn't figure out, even the people at DC Comics couldn't figure out if this was continuity or not because of that. So, yeah, it's a pre-crisis Batman story that ended up just coming out so late they went with it. Okay, See, I love those stories behind the stories and stuff, right? So people to get all riled about and stuff like that, it was written in a way that it wouldn't really matter. And that's one of the things that I really think is why Alan Moore doesn't like it, Oh, my goodness. Excuse me. Man, we've been here for quite a while, guys. Thanks for hanging in there. All right. So if you saw my last haul, you saw that with Gmart, the Gmart haul. And apparently they're just now an online store. Apparently in Chicago, they got bought out by a bigger store. I got an email telling me this will not affect me ordering online. Yet when I looked up their address online just to be curious and stuff, it said closed forever. So they got bought out and a comic book shop was closed down, but apparently there's still an online service. I somehow missed this Justice Society of America 2 issues out of the, what is it? I think they're up to issue 8 now or something. And it's coming out so sporadically, it's taken forever, right? So Jeff Johns currently, these are new books. Jeff Johns currently has like this little corner of DC where he did a Stargirl story, which I thought was really cool. I got the trade over there. I've already showed this stuff, right? And it ties into this 12 issues of Justice Society that's going on. That's got time travel per Degaton. Apparently, it's wrapped up in a bow and it's moving on to another story or something. But anyway, I've got like 1 through 8 or something, 1 through 7, whatever it was. And for some reason, I did not order 4 and 5. Don't know. Things happen, right? But when I got the book, like I said, it's coming out so slow. This has been going on for a while. This book's coming out so sporadically and stuff that when I went up and I read issue 6 and 7 or what it was, I didn't even notice. I did not miss a beat. I didn't even notice that issue 4 and 5 had not happened, right? So I got these. I went ahead and read them. Yes, things happen. You need these for the rest of the story and stuff like that. But I just found that interesting that even Jeff Johns, who's one of the better writers out there, love him or hate him and stuff, right? I'm a fan, but I also will call out when he's wrote something crappy or he's getting weird or something, right? I'm not a fanboy, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just not going to pray. I don't do that with anybody. They write something good, cool. If they write something weird, cool. If I like it, I'll defend it. But if they write something not so good, I can be objective, right? So even this is a little bit lackluster, but there you go, right? But I recommend it. There's also a Sandman series going on, that Sandman Mystery Theater, that Sandman, Wesley Dodds. There's a 6-issue miniseries going on right now. There's the horrible, I read 2 issues of it, issue 1 and 3, in the comic book store while I was there. That's how long it took me I could get through it and stuff, right? Of his Tim Sheridan's Green Lantern, Alan Scott. I'm not joking, man. Horrible book. Horrible. And then there is also, I think, a Flash series going on that I haven't laid eyes on. The All-Star Flash. There's like this little corner of Earth 2-ish things going on. There's not enough of me knowing what's going on at DC currently to know how these fit in. But it feels like we have our little corner of Jeff Johns there. So if you want to dabble in that, that's cool. But it's Stargirl, which has already ended. That was kind of cool. And this Justice Society book, I don't know where things are going with it. But it's kind of cool to see these characters and stuff, right? There's still a little bit of fun and play in there that I like, I'm an Earth 2 junkie anyway, man. Going all the way back to when I was a kid, it was those Justice League, Justice Society crossover stories, man, So we get into the fantasy realm, the fantasy part of all this stuff, right? And I will pick this stuff up for days. I remember back in the day that I got the first 12 issues of Quorum, the first comics Quorum adaptation. By first couple issues are by Mike Mignola. Roy Thomas does these, and the first Elric series that they did and stuff. Anyway, I ended up getting something like 12 issues for $1 off of eBay because nobody was looking for this stuff back in the day, right? So anyway, they've taken every book and there's been adaptations, and right now Titan Books is doing these fantastic I love them. Fantastic library editions of those books. Here we go. Yeah, these fantastic library editions of these books, right? As they've come out, all, doesn't matter what company did it or whatever. Somehow Titan Books is putting these things out, right? So I will read those all day long. Actually, that little box that I just pulled that out, that's a lot of my fantasy stuff, a lot of the Moorcock stuff, right? So I'm a huge Elric fan, anti-hero fan. I've been I tried to read this book, the first one, when I was 5 years old. And at 5 years old, I thought this was about pirates. If you go back and read the book, you'll see what I'm talking about, man. They're talking about selling they're on boats and ships and stuff like that. I remember reading about the Ruby Throne and just being like, wow, in my little 5-year-old mind. So that's why I'm real careful about telling people to check out Elric and stuff, right? But in the 80s, First Comics, Roy Thomas started putting out these adaptations with an artist named Michael T. Gilbert. And I'm not saying that he was the best artist to be on this, but he gets it done, okay? So this is Weird of the White Wolf, 5 issues. I now have 3 issues. This is 1 and 3. So I'm real glad to get those. If you're into Elric and you have a niche for the anti-hero fantasy stuff, there you go, And then I picked up this random issue of Sovereign 7. When Chris Claremont, I knew in my mind that he had to have gotten pushed off of the X-Men, right? I feel like something dirty had happened to him. I had no reason to, I had no facts. It was just a guess. I just felt it was an emotional reaction, whatever happened, right? So as he bounced around for a while and stuff like that, he ended up making this deal where he owned these characters and they could exist in the DC universe, right? And this is when people were talking about creator rights and the Image had changed the game and everything like that. And he came out with Sovereign 7, and I think it was lackluster. I hung in there for I don't know how many issues, maybe a year, because it's Chris Claremont, and I got rid of the issues. And then I started having remorse because basically he uses what I think is a trope now, but these guys reside in a lodge. Sovereign 7 comes from another dimension. They reside in a lodge that is mystical because it is a crossroad of many dimensions. And in this one, Wolverine appears. Well, his boots, at least. He is in front of a fireplace with his legs kicked up. You see his boots. You know he's smoking a cigar. He calls people bub. And then somebody hands him a beer and you hear the word schnicked. You never see his face. But it's Wolverine in the DC universe. All right. Sovereign 7, number 2. It took me forever to remember what issue that was, and he may have popped up again. Just an icebreaker, right? These are upgrades. I'm going to go a little quicker now. This is Atari Force. This is going to be the next thing that I get out and read from beginning to end. It's issue 20 and 1 special. First 12 issues. Philip Jose, I want to say Philip Jose Farmer. I'm getting tired, guys. Garcia Lopez, art is in them. Mike Barron takes over. Ed Burrito, that's not right. Anyway, it was a solid little licensed sci-fi book, and it's one of the first books that I actually talked about on YouTube as loving. And Captain Strangelove was like, I love Atari Force, and he ended up showing me like his 30 number ones or something like that, right? This is the last 2 issues. I know I got a few issues that need upgraded, so I just grabbed these. They were $1 a piece. I know number 19 needs to be done. Now, these next 2, I grabbed these because this is fantastic, right? Now, not to get TMI, but I've got a little section of my life there where I was traveling. I actually spent 9 months kind of hitching on the road and getting with truckers and getting paid to keep them company as I did the circuit and jumped around and had my duffel bag and grew my hair out longer. The mullet disappeared because the rest of the hair grew out and all this stuff, right? And in the middle of that, I was doing odd jobs when I would try to take a break and come home and stuff, right? And I've told you guys before, I actually worked in a comic book shop in the early 90s. And it was when Superman died and Valiant was coming big. So thanks to these comics, and seeing when they came out, I kind of get a timeline. The comic book shop I worked at, I got paid to make their sign. I was painting their sign. And as I was talking comics and stuff with the guy, I ended up working there. And he tried to start off by paying me in comics. And then a funny thing happened. He started disappearing. He had a regular job at a community college, and he was the guy who ran the cafeteria. He ordered stuff. He didn't cook or anything like that. He showed up with a suit and tie, and he did the budget and all that stuff, right? I guess it's the manager or something, right? He did this on the side, and he's never around. And all of a sudden, I still don't know exactly how I did it, but I ended up ordering the books and running the place, not getting paid for it. You know what I mean? Because I'm also working at Hardee's from 3 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. So anyway, um, and I was the outside guy. I wasn't cooking. And that's one of the reasons I quit. It's because they stuck me inside at night. Anyway, that's another thing, you know. So I had 2 jobs going on doing this stuff, and also like getting out of town and traveling. Somewhere along all of this, like I was on the road 9 months solid at some point, came back twice and got the hell out. But anyway, this is around the time this book is very nostalgic for me. And I already had this and stuff, right? But to find this number 0 in mint condition in a dollar box is just a crime against nature and stuff, right? Archer and Armstrong number 0. And this would like very next issue, we would get into the great crossover Unity and stuff, right? But this is the era of Valiant that I feel like everybody should read. These books should be super hot. Everybody should still be loving this. I don't care if it is over 30 some years later. That blows my mind. But it's the Jim Shooter era of Valiant. That era where Jim Shooter was steering the ship, writing most of the stuff, working with everybody. So we got a 0 issue there. Then we go forward, right? We go forward to where Acclaim came in. Acclaim Comics or Acclaim or whatever, whoever it was, right? Some video game studio, it'll all come back to me later, came in and there's a hostile takeover and Shooter got pushed out and the books changed and they made it more comic booky compared to what Jim Shooter had been setting up with realistic timelines and like it's in the real world and stuff. Fantastic stuff. All the books sort of tying together and stuff, right? And we get to the last issue, Solar Man and the Atom number 60. Not a book that I think is valuable by any means, but that's got to be one of the most unique takes. The way it is painted, this is one of the most unique takes on a comic, I think. And of course it's calling back to the 60s with, so you know, Dr. Solar books and stuff, those painted covers and stuff, right? But for the last issue, Keith Giffen came in to kind of put a bow and say goodbye to this series. This is issue 60, the last one. Again, beautiful condition. Of course, finding anything that's the last issue is really hard to do at times. And yeah, you know, and it's Keith Giffen, man, being a little bit serious. What I think is unusual, even more for you trivia guys, if you're really into this, if you know Keith Giffen, you know he does plots through layouts and things like that. He doesn't do scripting, or at least I can't recall him ever doing scripting except on this book. I do believe this is the book where Keith Giffen came in and he actually did the scripting, the words that come out of people's mouths. This is the only book I can think of that he's done it. And again, I could be wrong, but nothing's coming to mind. So this was just a cool find. I've actually kind of wanted that, but people will ask you for outrageous prices on final issues when they don't need to be, right? It's all because of that damn Star Wars book, you know. This is an upgrade. This is a beautiful book to get. This is the Sandman Mystery Theater Annual. I believe it's the only one it had, number 1. And there's some beautiful black and white painted Alex Ross covers in here that I'm in love with. They're just fantastic, right? It's got John Bolton, Guy Davis, David Lloyd, Alex Ross, like I said. Just some fantastic art in this and stuff, right? So this is the one I'm going to put up because the pages are in better shape. I'll be pulling out the other one, probably putting it on a shelf so I can get out of it just to kind of flip through it. This is nothing more than filling in a gap. Actually, a 31-year-old gap. Well, 32. We'll split the difference. 33-year-old gap at least. 1983 is when I think this came out. So we'll go 31-year gap, right? Get some more of my sweet, sweet coffee, and maybe I can do some math. So Batman and the Outsiders, 1983, at least the first half of it, was like possibly the happiest time in my childhood, right? I was living in a place called Jewel Ridge, Virginia. You got to ride, it was an old coal camp, right? It's just 2 or 3 miles of a road on top of a mountain. Everybody's got their houses on both sides of the road all the way through, a post office, an old park, and you go on down there, there's a church, a fire station, and then you get to the very end and that's where the school is, and this big field where they played softball and some woods and all this stuff right there. And you literally rode your bike to school. It was Americana is the way I can look back on it, right? And at that time Batman the Outsider started, and I thought this was going to be the book where I'm going to start at number one, and I am going to follow that book all the way till, like 300 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like in my mind, this was the book I was going to grow up with every month, getting an issue, right? Just because it was a number one. Now you have to remember, even at that age that I was at, fourth grade, I was probably 9 going on 10 or something like that. Turned 10, while this was going on and stuff. But at the time, you got to understand, this is probably the second number one Batman issue to come out since the 40s. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. The Batman didn't. This was still, in my mind, a Batman number one issue, even though it's Batman the Outsiders and stuff, right? So through all that, number 4 was just never on the rack. I missed it, or they didn't order it, or something happened. And over the years, I would never really come across it, and then I would come across a book, and it was the wrong one because I was going by memory and stuff, right? So Batman the Outsiders, number 4, just to fill in a gap, because 31-year-old OCD. You know what I mean? Again, Alpha Flight number 48. I now have the first 70 issues, right? Alpha Flight, I had probably the first 13 or 14 issues, and they just kind of disappeared from the rack. John Byrne, I hate that John Byrne, when he started this out, and again, it was a number 1 in 1983 is when Alpha Flight started, if I'm right, because I actually kind of remember where I was living. And for where it wasn't Batman, that's not the book I was going to follow for life. But anyway, apparently John Byrne hated doing the first 28 issues of the book before he switched over to Hulk and then ran off to do Superman stuff, right? But I kind of dig what Bill Mantlo kind of did when he came back on the book. So now I have the first 70 issues of this, right? Just to complete the run, I needed that one issue. Oh, here we go. Another Inhumans. We talked about that. Number 7. And I tell you what, you really got to be into the Inhumans when you see somebody about to get their hair cut. That's what's giving you anxiety, Medusa getting her hair cut. And this was something very cool to find in a dollar box. I don't know if you guys realize or are aware or even care, but there's a little bit of a renaissance going on with Wizard Magazine, or at least people were trying to push it. And I was one of the people years ago trying to see if I could find somebody who wanted to kind of like do a show on YouTube where we just talk about some Wizard Magazine stuff. Nobody's real interested. I know cartoonist Kayfabe started doing something, but on Spotify, I think it's Spotify, maybe iHeartRadio, I got to look which one it is. There's a whole podcast going on. It's been going on for several years, where they're up to like issue 86 of Wizard Magazine. There's an Instagram account. It could be the same people on the podcast, I don't know, but I've seen one or two, definitely two Instagram accounts where they just show pages from Wizard and stuff like that, right? And then I'll go around and people at these flea markets are like, I just sold the number 1 of that Wizard and I can't believe how much money I got for it, right? So I collected Wizard in the day, started around the teens, knew it was good stuff, you know what I mean? And I like those glory day of Wizards before they split off into Toy Fair and Inquest and stuff. And because there's an era where all that stuff was in here: costume contest, action figure, customable contest, make your custom action figure, everything like that was in there. In the early years, the interviews were a bit more serious. They started having more fun with it. Don't get me wrong, they got a little goofy, they got it across, and then you could definitely tell that they were promoting things. They were working hand in hand with Marvel and stuff like that. To this day, when it comes to Earth X number 0, they come across like here's this little sketchbook that we're putting in the bag of a Wizard magazine. And we asked Alex Ross to come up with the whole idea of like a Kingdom Come, more or less, the future of the Marvel universe. And he put a ton of work in it, backstory, Jim Kruger and stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is definitely coming out. They're trying to act like Wizard asked him to do it for fun, and he did all that work. And of course it came out. So, like with most things, the early years are the most pure and the most fun, and nothing lasts forever like that, right? But anyway, in the midst of all of the run of Wizard Magazine I have and stuff like that, I actually needed number 43. As you can see, this came out in 1995. I'm pretty sure it's March 1995. So we're looking at January 95, December 94 when this actually came out. But anyway, you can see, Image is still hot and going, even though they're late on their books. But it's got a huge James Robinson interview in it. which is just my thing because they talk about Starman. In my head, when it comes to my two favorite series, was it Commandy or is it James Robinson's Starman? I don't know. But this is that era where it was fun, man. They were having a lot of fun interviewing a lot of people. People actually, before the internet got huge and stuff, people were actually sending in envelopes for an envelope contest where they would draw on the envelopes. It was real interactive and stuff. You got DC releases. Here's a part of the James Robinson interview going on. By this time, Starman had only been out for a few months, less than a year, stuff, right? So good stuff there for me to go back and read. And I actually reached this point with things where I'm actually starting to feel that nostalgia of the 90s and stuff like, oh my God, Starman is 30 years old as I'm talking to you. It's just on my mind. It just popped in my head. We're in 2024. Starman came out in 1994, 30 years ago. Oh, wow. Okay. See what we had that. Here we go. Breen, both stories are great, but Batman Year One was more of the Jim Gordon story. Yeah, it's a cop story, but more down the earth and stuff, And like I said, we're talking about like my preference. If you guys are skipping around or something like that, we're going back to my comments on Frank Miller, Daredevil Born Again versus Batman Year One. Yeah, I mean, my preference even surprises me, so I'm not really putting down either one. I definitely want Chaykin's Time too. There was a deluxe hardcover edition, Black Kiss in Spanish for sale at our Comic Con last year. Hopefully, I'll have money for it. I think it was last year or the year before. I had a chance to get a ton of Black Kiss books by Howard Chaykin for $1 a piece. I couldn't believe it. And it really hurt to kind of put them back because I actually got better stuff. You know what I mean? It wasn't one of those things where I was being cheap. It was one of those things I made a choice, and I think I made the right choice. I feel like I'll be able to get Black Kiss better than the books I got off that guy. Chaykin is often said Time 2 is his favorite work. I bought it when it came out in the 80s. Wonderful, strange, and decadent. Nice. People are talking amongst each other. All right. That's some good conversation going on. Archer and Armstrong are cool. Solar. So apparently Matilda Gothica is a fan. Oh, Wizard was a constant for years. Even when I wasn't collecting heavily, I was still picking up the Wizards. I hung in there quite a bit. I mean, I got a long box of Wizards right here. I actually have 2 or 3 signed. One by Adam Hughes, one by the guy that does Dawn, Joseph Michael Lindner. And then I have another little shelf down here, the earlier issues when they were more square bound. When they went magazine, it went all to hell. That it just went down and down. Okay, might be worth doing that wizard analysis thing. But for Comic Reader, I don't have a bunch of Comic Readers, but I got a few. I have a story about Comic Reader. Commander Benson. I had no idea the whole thing. Never mind. When I started reading comics, a 30-year-old comic was from World War II. Now it's the 3rd year of Image. Yep. Isn't that wild? I do the same thing a little bit, thinking about how EC Comics would have been 1985. With my thinking just 10 years ago. I've already been through this. The 2000 teens is when I was really like, it's been how long? And I still have. Cerebus was my wake-up call. Cerebus was my wake-up call of like, if I'm going to get around to reading this, I better read this. Cerebus ended 20-some years ago, guys. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, it's coming, it's reaching, it took years, 27 years or something for that book to come out totally. And we're creeping up on twice that time. It's amazing. Oh, I hated when Wizard started concentrating more on big events and Hollywood movies and less on the actual comic books. Yep. And it seems like that seems to be like, if we really wanted to play around and look at the comic book conventions and stuff like that, it's kind of wild how comic book conventions, the bigger ones, that's why I love these grassroots ones and Heroes Con, the ones that are comic book centric. Heroes Con got ran over by, like most cons did in the 2000 teens, by cosplayers. It's really got out of hand for a while there, and it came back to the comics and stuff. But if you look at like San Diego Comic Con and stuff like that, some of the bigger ones, same thing happened with some of the conventions. All right, we're going back. We're going to get ready to go through my reading list right now. What do you expect? They wanted to sell normies, and normies don't read. So what was left of the comics press went. Let's pretend we're talking about comics. We're having things that I feel like I should be writing these down because these are fantastic topics to bring you guys in and talk about. All right, what am I reading? Right. Well, I'm going to show the first two, and the rest are comics. Don't worry. But some of the things I'm worried about, I've hitting this kick over the last year or two. I don't know how long I've been doing it, but it's for me to get books, right? To go to a place called, in the town I was in. It's one of the reasons like I busted out and traveled and hit these road trips and stuff like that. But the stepdad and the uncle and the stepdad's friends and stuff, they read books and novels. Conan, right? Some autobiography on Jim Morrison I saw got passed around. Nobody gets out of here alive. The Moorcock stuff, Conan stuff, right? A bunch of sci-fi books, Isaac Asimov, things like that, right? And believe it or not, the Moorcock stuff, the doll books, that actually survived all the collections and stuff, right? I hate that I don't have those. There's a whole story about what happened to those, and it kills me, right? So in the 80s, around 85, 86, I read A Wrinkle in Time. And by this time, I'm in 6th grade, and my brain can click now and actually understand more of what I'm reading. You know what I mean? I could read. I sound like I'm coming off like I was stupid. No, there was just I was just getting to where I could follow a story better. I could focus on it more. I know what I'm trying to say, but I'm not going to do it very well. Anyway, I was not stupid. You know what I mean? I was 12. I was young. Okay. So I read A Wrinkle in Time, and that did it. Bam! I read A Wrinkle in Time, and all of a sudden I became a ferocious reader. I was already reading comics and magazines and anything I could get a hold of. Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, Encyclopedia Brown, and then came A Wrinkle in Time, and it took off. And now I'm reading Asimov, and I'm understanding Moorcock better and doing all these things, right? So we had a CVS pharmacy. And we also had a bookstore that was 60 miles up the road. But back in the 80s, and when you're 12, that might as well be a world away. And then when I would get there, I would be overwhelmed, and ended up still getting comics if I went to that little store or something, right? So we had a CVS pharmacy, right? It was called something else back then. The drugstore is still in the same place. It got bought about CVS, but it was called something else in the 80s. Anyway, so I would have to go through there and find things to read, right? And it would be Craig Shaw Gardner. First thing was Malady of Magics. I've gotten those. TNT book I got about a year ago, which actually ends up being worth some money. And of course, a few Remo Williams books and things like that, little pulp novels. And there's other things I was reading. Don't get me wrong. They'll come to me. I've rebought some of them and stuff, right? So I've been reading this. Okay. I don't want to say this is this is Craig Shaw Gardner. I almost want to say, but he's not. If it's just giving you an idea of what's going on. But basically, what Douglas Adams is to science fiction, Craig Shaw Gardner is to fantasy, right? The whole premise is that the first trilogy has to do with a wizard who gets cursed by a demon where he's allergic to magic. So that trilogy ends. The second trilogy starts with this, A Difficulty with Dwarves. And it turns out that instead of... They make their way to a city where there's all these great wizards. And the city in the third trilogy, right before this book, the end of the third trilogy, has been pulled into the netherworlds, into hell. And they save it, bring it back. And instead of curing the wizard, he ends up becoming contagious. Now all the wizards are now allergic to magic and sneezing. And his little apprentice now is on a quest. So it's pretty straightforward reading. It's not, there's not a lot of, there's no symbolism or anything like that stuff, but it's lighthearted reading and stuff. And I'm finding at my age, I can totally get why I was in love with these books when I was 13, 14. But now it's a little bit hard reading. Now, here's what's funny about Craig Shaw Gardner. This guy ended up being the guy who did a bunch of adaptations of movies. His Lost Boys adaptation sells for $300 online, a little paperback. He did the Batman 1989 movie adaptation to novels. He did the Back to the Future stuff, right? And he kept doing his own thing too, right? So that's interesting. And as I was talking about the collection of books back in the day, I can't remember if this is the actual book in hand that I have probably seen since I was about 7, 8 years old and read when I was like 10. But yeah, I'm back to reading The Hobbit. I'm going back and forth between these two books when I have time. I'm reading about 10 to 25 pages at a time and stuff, right? But this is the version of The Hobbit that I first laid hands on as a kid. Now, like I said, is this the actual book? I can't remember and stuff, right? But they go, believe it or not, if you go by the description in the book, and they're pudgy. That's actually more how they describe. I can get where the artist ended up drawing, Costello as the Hobbit, or Dom DeLuise or something, right? It actually says they're pudgy. There's little things in there that you could read into some of the descriptions. So that's what I'm kind of reading on the side, right? Other things I'm trying to get through, we're going to get to the Quasar stuff again, is, oh God, what was the guy's name? It's probably right on here. I can't believe I'm doing this. Everybody's going to yell at me. All right, everybody's going to yell at me. It's all right, man, right? But there is a guy who makes his own, he's in the world, he holds the world record, the official world record for having the most items of a Swamp Thing collection. And about once a year there for a while, he was coming out with these fanzines of Swamp Thing that people would send in articles, and he self-publishes them, puts them out. Roots of Swamp Thing, the Holland Files. The Holland Files is, I think, the website or something. And there for a while, he was all over YouTube. I don't know if he's still around. I think he pops up on my Instagram every now and then and stuff, right? So, I ordered 3 of them, and it seems like he had 5. So I'm going through these again, taking my time reading the fanzines and stuff, right? This was interesting because this has popped up in a book called Crossover and Image. This character just walked through, but it's this little indie book called Alec the King, the King Canute Crowd by Eddie Campbell. And I've been reading a lot of Bacchus. I tell you what, man, out of all the indie alternative comic stuff that came out of the 80s, Bacchus, his dead face Bacchus, gives me that feel of the most 80s thing. And then he had this little side project. I started reading this last year, and I remember liking it, and somehow it just got lost in the mix. So I need to sit down and read that all the way through. Marvels, I finally, like I talked about this, I got the trade. I read halfway through the first issue. I've had multiple, this was like an 8-issue miniseries that's been collected, of course. This is another book people get really excited when I show this, the Marvels Project, Ed Brubaker. I read the first 20-some issues of it, and it actually kind of started out like Kingdom Come did. It has the toucan kid in the 1930s, I think, lying on his deathbed in the hospital talking about the future because he was part of the Avengers and met them and time traveled. Well, Kingdom Come started out the same way with Wesley Dodds' Sandman, and that actually took me out a little bit, so we got to finish that. And now we are at the issue where I'm reading Quasar, and when I say read, I've read the first 20-some issues so many times I can skim through them, get through them pretty quick. I'm up to issue 19 where we go into the big Cosmos and Collision. This is where we go from Quasar. The first couple issues, year and a half, is sort of like Superman-like, and Mark Gruenwald knows what he's doing on purpose, right? They are Superman-like. Quasar is sort of the Superman playing with those tropes of the Marvel Universe. And then we go into the teens where we go into Journey into Mystery, where we go out there in sci-fi and a few things happen. And then we go into Cosmos and Collision, where we get into things like, it feels like Steve Englehart, Jim Starlin's Cosmic stuff is where I'm at, right? He's got to save the universe and stuff. Greg Capullo came on. Sorry about the glare. Came on, and we get a lot of B characters and stuff that he can play around with and stuff. All right, so that's where we're at. We're getting into new entities of the universe, playing around with eternity and oblivion and things like that. It's what it built up to, and the book changed tones, right? But there's 2 little breather issues. Number 17 and issue, I think, 58 of Quasar are actually, I don't want to say they're key books, but people want the books because basically what happened is he snuck Barry Allen Flash into the Marvel Universe. Okay, let's just put that out there. That's a video all of its own, right? But then we get issue 18, right? And this is, I think, Craig Capullo's first artwork that Eric Breen was referencing. He comes in here, and I completely forgot about this, right? I completely forgot about this issue. But Mark Gruenwald had laid the plans out on how we could fix the Marvel Universe of today, right? Because basically what happens is that Wendell Vaughn It's just walk up. He's walking around in Wisconsin visiting his family, and he doesn't know how he got from New York to Wisconsin. And we slowly start realizing that he's not Quasar anymore. He has a weird dream that is Superman like, or him flying. And we're starting to understand that he kind of remembers being a superhero. I'm gonna make a video on its own of this stuff, right? But he's not. But he's like, why am I remembering this? And he calls New York, and he still has his office and all the stuff, but he has no rental car. He has no idea how he got here. And he meets this kid that he's told to talk to, and this little kid talks him into going, and he's just playing it off like it's a little kid, trying not to be weird. And this little kid is like, wow, you're from New York. Did you ever see superheroes before? And Wendell Vaughn is like, I met Captain America somehow. I'm not sure what the circumstance was, but yeah. So the little kid has plastered his drawings all over his little tree house, telling him that he created all these heroes. And it turns out he's an entity named Origin, and he's asking Wendell Vaughn to go with him to an old folks home where this lady's on her deathbed, and she's sort of like an Oblivion character or something like that. But these two people have created the circumstances for all the heroes. The kid is supposed to be able to like bring them to life and talk about how they came, and it happens. But the lady will sit there, and that's why some heroes disappear, because the old lady is this entity in the universe that takes them away, undoes them. They don't exist, and that's complete. People don't remember them. Wendell Vaughn being able to remember being a superhero is what makes him unique. And I'll go ahead and ruin the story. It turns out the little kid is the one that undoes them, which is why Wendell Vaughn was able to do it, because he cannot kill the old lady. He wants Wendell Vaughn to do it, saying that if you kill this old lady, you're going to save all the superheroes and they can save more people. And of course, after he figures it out, it turns out the little kid is the entity. He does a twist. He figures it out. Because the kid is bloodthirsty. So when he thinks he's going to shoot the old woman, he shoots the kid, and that comes out of the little kid over the old lady in her deathbed. So the old lady's like, how'd you figure it out? He's like, he was kind of bloodthirsty for somebody that's a creator and stuff. So the lady says, I want to change your focus. When I created your costume, I could have done better. So we go from the Superman-like costume to this costume, which is actually plays into the different eras of the book, right? So the old lady is going to die on her deathbed, but she's going to be reborn, right? So this is 1990. Here we are 34 years later. Marvel Universe is crap. We could have this lady remember who she is and start recreating all the heroes. That's how you fix it. It turns out the kid has been around for a while. That's why all the heroes aren't acting right. This is my idea. Take these two characters and say that kid is the one that's messing up the Marvel Universe, and now the old lady who died and has been reborn and has grown, she's starting to remember things. It's like a la Miracle Man. She's going to remember all these things she can does, and she starts fixing the Marvel Universe, and her and the kid are going at it because the kid is just ruining everything. There you go. It's all in continuity. Mark Gruenwald, the guy who would always try to fix continuity and keep it straight, laid the seed work for how we could fix the Marvel Universe in continuity there, right? I think it's genius. I think it's great. All right. The Tolkien books never captivated me. I enjoyed the films, though, especially the romance between Arwen and Aragorn, which readers have told me it's important in the books. I think I grew up in the culture after the 60s when the books really took off. I grew up in the culture they were always around. I mean, when I was 5, I saw Wizards by Ralph Bakshi the same day that I saw Ralph Bakshi's is that right? Now, Lord of the Rings cartoon. So I grew up with all that stuff. These books were laying around. And then D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, was going on. I started playing that when I was 13 all the way to about my senior year. I've talked about all that stuff. So it was a mesh around me. You know what I mean? Like, I can't say that I was a fan because I discovered it. It was just there everywhere, it felt like. Here we go. Ed Brubaker cannot write a bad story. I agree. Despite working at Marvel for his entire career, Mark Gruenwald was a total DC fanboy. He brought a lot of DC flavor in many of the writing runs. Also, I want to say it was issue 13 or 14, the Will Payton Starman is blatantly in the comic book of Quasar for one panel. and I had to look it up. I took a screenshot, but I found a message board where somebody asked Roger Stern about it because he was the one writing that Will Payton Starman, and he had no idea why Mark Gruenwald put him in there, but he saw it 4 years after Mark Gruenwald had passed away and felt like it was one of his friends giving him a wink and a nod and a wave from beyond the grave. It really affected him. Project Pegasus from Mark Gruenwald's Marvel 2-in-1 run. It was inspired by Kirby's Project Cadmus. Yeah, I think I just kind of assumed that, like, you might have read Kirby and stuff like that, and it pops up in the book. So yeah, at some point, man, just for a fun, satisfying read that's not like heavy and inexpensive and stuff, Quasar is the way to go because it plays around with B characters and references the past and has some fun with it. Also, what I'm reading is Suicide Squad. I think if you saw, I got the first 6 trades, and I think there's 7 or 8 of them. But anyway, I'm on the 5th trade of Suicide Squad. Reading trade is actually fun. The artwork's getting better. I just finished the crossover they had with the Judas Project or something like that. And now we're going to Apocalypse in this trade. So I've been really trying not to skip around because, you get Jack Kirby's Fourth World in it. I'm going to give you a chance. It's a fun series. And you can actually tell James Gunn pulled quite a bit from the Ostrander Suicide Squad, a little bit. You watch them. I'm also going through, finally getting around to this. I have these DC Showcase phone books. I have a whole shelf right here of them that I pick up when they're on sale on the cheap. And the only books that I really seem to enjoy and actually prefer to be in black and white are Bronze Age horror. And before that, horror books in general, probably from reading those eerie and creepy magazines when I was a kid, and Conan. And that's definitely from the Savage Sword of Conan magazine, right? So these showcase books are on cheap paper. You get a lot of material reprints in here, and it's black and white, and it works perfectly for this, man. This has Neil Adams, Bernie Wrightson, Joe Orlando, Steve Skeets, Sergio Aragonis. That black and white stuff works perfect in these. And we're on a Mark Gruenwald kick, man. I get this. This was my Watchmen. I was 12 years old when this 12-issue miniseries came out, and I already knew who the Squadron Supreme was. Just from the Avenger comics, the Defenders. I knew who they were. I got the Thor comic where they brought in Wayne Boring to do an issue where Thor goes to Hyperion's world. I'm not going to get into it and stuff like that, right? But I still have the same 12 issues in the Captain America crossover that I had. And every now and then I like to get this down. I did not have this started a little bit before Watchmen, if I remember right. And nobody knew Watchmen was going to be huge when it started. And why am I comparing these? Well, if you read it, they take some real world problems and they actually crap all over the Constitution and don't realize that's what they're doing. But this really stepped it up to where what would happen if heroes became proactive to save the world. Basically, they get a deal with the government where they take over things for a year. So this book took place in real time. And the president of the United States is actually Nighthawk. And he's like, you guys are nuts. I'll have no part of this and all this stuff like that. And it turns out he's right in the end. Even the road to hell has good intentions and stuff. But this is if the Justice League became proactive. And this book ended up influencing. I mean, I saw it when it started happening. I was like, but my deal is that, like, I didn't think they were going to give this series credit. Kingdom Come, The Authority, Warren Ellis. There's a lot of books that started coming out in the late 90s going into the 2000s that this is exactly where they got those ideas from. So to me, when it comes to things that influenced comics, I'll put this right beside of Watchmen. And I'm not going to sit here and try to come up with the scale of who did what and what did, things like that, which influenced more. This was my Watchmen. And actually, I got yelled at because I was buying books with my allowance. My brother was buying books and the stepdad was getting off cheap. He never bought crap. So he was reading our comics, right? So I came up and I read issue 12, the last one of this, and I loved the ending so much. I thought the ending was great. It was so much that I looked at him. I went, oh, man, everybody dies. And he actually chewed me out and yelled at my 12-year-old self in front of all his friends and buddies for ruining the ending. So, yeah, there's a little bit of a bad taste when I get to the end of this. That was embarrassing. So anyway, And then I go back, and here we are. You told, I'm getting predictable. I had the hardback omnibus and stuff. I got this at Ollie's years ago, 2018 or something. But this is the omnibus softcover #1. It does the first 19 issues, I think. Sorry, the first 17 issues. And for some reason, I'm a huge fan of Solomon Grundy and stuff. And there's a Solomon Grundy story here where they bring him in. Well, anyway, this is where we go to the sideshow carnival stuff, where he saves the blue skinned Michael. He finds him in a sideshow freak show and stuff like that. So, the issues, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, 15 of Starman are really underrated. It is such good stuff with great art, building up to a lot of stuff. I mean, this is really an 81 to 85 issue story completely. So he saves Michael, but I've really been wanting to get into the Solomon Grundy. Solomon Grundy comes up as a version where he's kind of a good guy. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I'm showing you pages from like 8 through 11. I need to go further in the book. Watch me not be able to find him now. Yeah, I'm slacking. But anyway, he fights in the sewers. He finds there's Solomon Grundy, but this Grundy is different. This is actually a friendly, lovable version of Grundy. And Starman Jack Knight becomes really good friends with him. He dies, and he gets into the story in the issue in the 30s, where Batman and Alan Scott Green Lantern come together, and they go into Solomon Grundy's sort of psyche, trying to find that version to bring his friend back. Actually, got a little bit of a monster tearjerker thing going on, right? And then I get on an Alan Moore kick. Like I said, when I start reading certain things, I start like, I want to go back and read that. And I went back and I read League of Extraordinary Gentlemen Century, but I need to back up, and I've got this softcover edition. I have the hardcover one of the Black Dossier of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, because we get like a lot of history in this and a lot of cool things. And I'm actually thinking about tearing out the 3D glasses in it and stuff. The Blazing World, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the basic premise is like take the Walt Newton theory from Philip Jose Farmer, where everybody in literature is sort of connected, and I'm oversimplifying that and stuff. And Alan Moore did it with like literature. H.G. Wells tied them all together, Invisible Man, Dracula, all this stuff, and he tied it all together. And he's always pulling in characters from movies and literature, so it's an Easter egg hunt, even with things that's in the background with each one. And he really, after 2 4-issue miniseries, he went to town in this one. So after that, I mean, it got real complicated. And I remember there was websites just dedicated to doing annotations, panel by panel, page by page, of everything he's done in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. So you have a straightforward story that you can follow, but if you really want to get into it and have fun, you can start identifying all the stuff they packed into them, where they came from, right? And then, before I showed the last book, I forgot to show this, right? This is a complete set of 77 Saturday Night Fever, 78, 77 Saturday Night Fever trading cards from the movie. This is all of them. I found this for like $6 on the internet. Now, what's funny is that when I was a kid, I have told the story. The parents, stepdad and the mom, were very young, so there was people from the community college coming around and hanging out. It was that 70s show, and people were passing out / sleeping on couches, and it was nothing. A couple times a month they had just bodies all over the trailer and stuff. And I would get up early in the morning, and I would go through the couches. Sometimes I'd even reach into their pockets and stuff and go through the dirty laundry that was always piled up, and I would get a handful of change. Then when I got just a tad bit older, like by 4 or 5 months, I would get on my big wheel and I would drive around the neighborhood, and I would get pop bottles, and I would go across the road where I wasn't supposed to go to a national market, and I would cash in those bottles. And then I would cross back on the road, because the trailer I lived in was back to back with an old mom and pop store that had a pinball machine with rolling numbers, concrete floor, candy, trading cards, and peach knee-high. And I would get a peach knee-high or a grape soda. I found a picture of me holding a grape soda, and I would get a milk crate, and I would sit there and I'd play pinball, and I'd have a stack of Superman cards, and I would have the movie, and I'd have a stack of Kiss cards. Those were the main 2 I would buy. And I would have my candy, and I watched the Bad News Bears, and there's a scene in one of the Bad News Bears movies where Kelly is playing pinball, and he would hit the pinball machine with his hips. No idea what I was doing. So I'm sitting there with I'm a little kid, little blonde Dutch boy haircut, and I'm sitting on this milk crate, and I'm sitting here with a big wad of bubble gum or some candy in my thing, playing pinball with my cards. So I still have a bunch of them. And I got a whole shelf on top of them of the ones I've completed and stuff over the years and stuff. So as you noticed, I told you a story when I was probably 4 to 6 years old, 5 and 6 years old doing that stuff. This was an R-rated movie. That's what I just love about thinking about the 1978 to 1982 is a world of its own, because when I talked about these, people started pointing out things I've said before and I knew and I remembered, but it all started coming together. But yeah, 1978, a rated R movie. Here, hey kids, here's some trading cards for you with bubble gum in them. We also had Alien, which was a horror movie in space, and they had a toy for it. You know what I mean? It was nothing to have these R-rated movies to target kids with their toys and stuff like that. And I got to say, I don't think we came out damaged. Some people got irate. We didn't care. We just had a monster toy, So yeah, go figure, man. Just different time. So the last thing I'm showing, and this book I will never get rid of. I think I put it in a box to get rid of it one time, and I immediately put it out. So I've talked about my brother before, right? He's my half brother. Never really made a difference to me, right? And he lived with there's a time from time he was 6 and I was 10, he lived with his grandparents. He would come down 2 weekends a month or something, if I remember, and it was my job to take care of him and stuff, right? So we went out and we would get comic books. He'd get a stack of comic books. I'd get a stack of comic books. We would switch them. He would take his home. I'd put mine up. And as he got older, it was so amazing how I'm just 4 years older than him. But even at 4, that little section of 4 years being younger, it blows my mind how even then, even though I was young, but those youth, he had his pulse. He had his hand on the pulse of comics and stuff. Like, he was a real quiet kid, so it kind of amazed me what he would pick out. And he was on to Rob Liefeld from day one, right? He was on to Deadpool and Cable from day one. Things that people didn't know were going to be big, right? And that was him. He always had his pulse on things, right? And he actually had his pulse on this Peter Bagge Hate. I hadn't seen him for a few years, and then we pop up, we talk comics, and he gives this to me and says, you have to read it. It's a trade of Hate. That's my brother. You know what I mean? Like, I can sit here and talk about comics all day and memories and go back and things like that. And yet, and don't get me wrong, there's a few things I thought were great, predicted, but I think you've seen over the years, I look for those diamonds in the rough. He was on it. You know what I mean? He just, I don't know, his eye just, I don't know how he did it, but it was that he was just more of that era than I was. You know what I mean? Being the oldest kid, you get a lot more responsibility on you. So I thank you. I think that makes a difference somehow. I'm not going to go off on it. I haven't thought about it enough, man, but I've always wondered how he knew. And it's never been a jealousy thing. I've always been fascinated with how he does it. I do it with music. What he does with comics is what I do with music. I'm the guy that will discover a band 6 months before they get big. In my day, MTV standards. Before that, I have the ear for music like that, things that are great and it's going to be big or going to make a comeback. But yeah, this was like the first book my brother ever gave me. So I'm not going to ever give this up. And it's time for a rereading. And this has popped up in a few talks over the years and stuff like that, right? So I am looking around and I am seeing that I have made stacks. It is still cold in here. The heater is still going off. It is still cold as hell out there. And we have been going. How long have we been going, guys? We've been going for quite a bit. An hour and 42 minutes. So I have enjoyed this time with you. Let's take a look at these comments, and we're going to have to call it a day because I still have things to do. Okay, I agree with Showcase and DC Horror. Also, that DC War books work well with black and white. Russ Heath art doesn't need color. That's a genre that I like what I like out of it. I've never really gotten into it, so I completely refer to you. Russ Heath art is a given. I totally get it. War books, very few books have ever grabbed me with the war books and stuff, man. So yeah, I would like to do the war that time forgot, where it's World War II versus the Dinosaur Island or whatever it was. I would really like to read those. I'm surprised I haven't. Starman should be the roadmap of how a company can do a legacy character properly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Just turning in again was Toth Pot of Thundar. Yep. he is part of the character designs in the credits there, Crack. Whoops. Just realized I'm way behind the live feed. No worry, man. No worries. Yeah. Easy Comic Reader, another great session sitting around the learning tree with you in the chat. Take care. Hey, take care to you too, Easy Reader. Great to see you again. All right. Comic Crack, one of my all-time favorite comics. I'm going to assume you're talking about Buddy. And hey, just start talking about comics and where does the time go? I can do this all day with you guys. I mean, I don't really get to do it anywhere else except a couple times a year when I get with some of my buddies in person and stuff, right? So anyway, you guys have a great day. Stay warm, stay safe. And thanks, man. I had a good time this morning. Thanks for everybody that popped in. Like, subscribe, sub, share, let people know we're here, what's going on, la, 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 all the good stuff. And most importantly, man, be excellent to each other.